All right. I'm going to try to have a civil debate, discussion, whatever you want to call it, with Owen here. You did a debate with Workups, which I think spanned over 4 hours on his channel. And we kind of set the terms that we're going to try to like stick the topic of discussion mostly on like feminism. Think you also said you were kind of a Marxist feminist, if that's correct. I don't want to misrepresent you.
That would be right.
Yeah, so we limited to that. Of course, if the discussion is gonna require of kind of us delving into a little bit of politics, we're gonna do that, but mostly we're gonna stick to that topic, so it's not too vague of terms, and yeah. So how about you introduce yourself so people know who you are, and so we can start the discussion?
Yeah, sure. My name is Owen McDonald. I'm a Marxist feminist, as he said earlier. I'm not a YouTuber, but I leave comments occasionally. And I guess I got attraction from War Corpse's videos to do a debate with him. And that's sort of how the TheAndredal found me and decided to do a debate with me. So I'm going to be arguing for feminism and, from my personal view, against the TheAndredal's, I'm presuming, anti-feminist viewpoint. But yeah, that's pretty much all.
Well, yeah, sure. I really wouldn't really call myself an anti-SGW, to be honest, but I'm not the biggest fan of feminism, to say the least. So yeah, I kind of don't like to label myself. If anything, I will label myself an egalitarian, but that's just a way of life, not an ideology or anything like that. So just full disclosure here. So we're kind of giving you the information so everyone watching now and afterwards, whenever you're watching this. So we have agreed to trying to keep this civil, not shout ad hominems to each other, and we're going to try the best to present our points and debate this. So I wanted to start out with feminism. I think, if I remember correctly, the definition is the social, political, and economical equality for women, if I'm not entirely mistaken. And in the Western world, under the law, women already have everything, or are equal to men. Not everything. That would be a wrong term because every country is different. But why would you advocate for feminism still, and say it's needed when under the law, at least, women have the exact have the same rights as men?
Well, whilst you are correct in saying that laws exist to prohibit and prevent sexism from occurring in life, it's naive to say that equality has been achieved in social, political, or economic senses for women, because, well, all three are wrong on the count that equality hasn't been achieved. I mean, socially, it would probably be the starkest inequality, I would say, because you still see culturally problems for women in society which don't occur as frequently for men. So, for instance, look at the attitude around sexual health and sexual safety, which would be one example of where women have been given negative stereotypes and unfairly labelled through their gender. Political equality, you only have to look at the diversity of, say, the House of Commons or the Congress or the Senate to identify the misrepresentation of women, which is systematic, because, like, you look at how, if society was really equal, you would see a 50-50 about split in the highest establishments and corporations, and the fact that you don't, and there's a curve which sadly prohibits women, so I guess the glass ceiling would be the term for that, shows that equality hasn't been achieved, because if the law can recognise that men and women are equal, why isn't that reflected through political establishments and through representation at the highest organisational level? Economic equality hasn't been achieved for still sort of the same reasons. Like you look at the proportion of earnings in the workforce, and men still earn more than women. And I know lots of people like to say the wage gap is a lie and stuff, and like to perpetuate that any statistics around inequality in pay is wrong. But if you look at the wages per hour, it's disproportionate. Men are paid on average more than women per hour, which is unfair. Like that's textbook unfairness, like inequality. And again, you look at the higher paid jobs, and there's a distinction in that it's dominated by men. So to say that equality has been achieved is like unfair. It's a wrong statement, because it is like you just look at society and it's quite clearly not been achieved through the misrepresentation and unfair footing women are still given, sadly, even though laws have been passed. Like it's still there. I'm sure you have a comeback to that, so you go ahead.
Okay. When it comes to the political equality, there are no barriers for women to enter politics, and there are plenty of female leaders of government, like Theresa May. We have in Norway, we have Erna Solberg, we have Merkel in Germany. And there's also been for South Korea, and Thatcher has been. I'm not going to list everyone because I frankly don't know all of them. And plenty of women are in government, but perhaps women are not as interested in government as men. That might be one of the factors. It's just life choices. And when it comes to the economical inequality, there are many most Western countries. I'm not going to say all of them because I don't know all of the laws in every country. It would be preposterous if I actually claimed that. But at least here in Scandinavia, I believe also in UK and in the US, there are laws that prevent women getting paid less compared to men. And it's actually legal. So, and if you actually find out that this is the case, you can sue and report it to the police. So I also disagree with you there. What's your response?
Well, politically, whilst obviously there have been leaders who are female, I think it's, again, sort of naive to solely say that equality has been achieved just by a few figureheads been appointed. So obviously, whilst an individual woman can ascend to the top and become the leader of the country, that's not to say that every single woman will have the same chances as their male counterparts. I said similar in the debate with war corps, that whilst obviously it's easy to say that a woman can just apply or go to an office and become a politician, but as with any structured organisation in the West, there's different layers. There's different managements and levels that you have to go through before you can reach the level of politician that people sitting on the Senate have. So, and there's always going to be councils and boards and government organizations that dictate where or how you elevate yourself. And for women, their chances are lower. Hence why, whilst there have been a few notable female leaders like Theresa May, well, not Theresa May, Margaret Thatcher, like Angela Merkel, like Dilma Rousseff, they're notable because their gender prohibits their chances still. It's more famous if you're a woman who's managed to reach that level, you're more likely to be famous because you've become sort of a figurehead for your entire gender. That should tell anyone looking that gender is still a private a limit for political elevation. There are still barriers. And it's more, a government is more than just the person who's the prime minister or the president. There's the Congress or the House, which governs in effect. So if we look at Congress and the House of Commons, there's still not, it's not 50-50. It's not anywhere near 50-50 in most countries. In fact, I'm not sure there are any countries where that level of equality has been achieved in the body of government, like House. So that would be the answer for political equality. And whilst obviously for economic equality, yeah, a woman can complain and file a legal complaint if there is proof of wage disparity. But it's there's more knock-on effects than just complaining. Like, you've got the idea of going against the organization to contend with when you make your complaint. So if you're actively like pursuing legal action, then that's not as easy as just like making a complaint and then going to court. There's often months of waiting in between. There's like, you have to go on paid leave. Suddenly you put yourself out into the public to say, oh well, I'm combating my employer, and the negative connotations around that still like exist. Like, let alone the personal sort of implications of being deemed like bossy or like bitchy, I guess, for challenging your bosses and stuff and being vocally disparaging towards someone. Employers will see, or future employers, sadly, will view the fact that you've complained against the corporation you've worked for or company and taken action as a sign that they can't be trusted, because there are still like sort of perceived loyalties you're supposed to have to your boss, which prohibit your chances of, again, social like elevation and social mobility. So again, whilst it's good having laws, you need to change the culture around them to enforce them. It's like most forms of discrimination are pretty much like stopped or made illegal in the West, but that doesn't mean that discrimination is ended, does it? Like, you do so through education and like societal change and evolution. You don't do so. You can't just like pass a law and expect change to happen. You have to instill the movement into people through like actual communication of the idea. Hence why feminism would still be needed to push forward the change.
Yeah, but but still, it is illegal for women, at least in these countries that I mentioned, and if you have the evidence that shows this, and you're being paid, that's just the risk you have to take. Even if you get as a man, you get not the pay you deserve. You have to fight for it. That's how things work. And also, I'm sure you're referring to the wage gap here, which is more of a earnings gap, because it's just what women earn at what men earn, and you can see this in what kind of education and what kind of life choices women make in general, and this goes also into politics in general. There are of course many women who go into politics, but it also has to do with how good of a politician. What you are you good to speak? Can you appeal to people? And I don't think that's a gendered issue. I think that's just a human issue when it comes to charisma and individuals. And saying that there is some sort of glass ceiling, I wouldn't actually claim that, because there is actually no bar. At least in the US, it's perhaps a little worse, because you have to get a lot of money, raise a lot of money to actually run. So you have those factors. But going more into European issues, where you have no bar of actually getting into politics, and when it comes to the economical issue, has been voted like the 7 last years as the best country to live in by several like UN and other organizations, but women still choose to pursue careers that make them more part-timers. I'm talking generally, of course. I wouldn't say that there are women who work full-time, but when you look at the trend, women work more part-time and want to have more free time, either for family or whatever. That's generally the facts of the matter. You can rebut to that.
Well, to go from the start, you said something about fighting for like higher wages and stuff. And whilst, I mean, I'm a critic of capitalism as a whole, so I'm not really in favour of that system of like doing things anyway. But even in that system, I don't think it's particularly fair to say that a woman should have to like fight to be considered on the equal footing of a man in terms of their wages. Like, that's not, you shouldn't have to like go into a job actively knowing that you're going to have to prove your worth and fight your employer to be considered worthy of being paid the same amount as your male counterpart. Like, and obviously men have to contend with like unfair wages too. I'm not saying that men don't, but at the same time, it's all too often to see women going into jobs, finding out their male counterparts are being paid more, and then not having the grounds to do it. Because lest we forget that legal services, again, aren't as easy as many imply. Like, it's not like you can just turn up with a complaint and then have it sorted out for you. Often court cases take months to process, and in the meantime, you're working in an environment which is now aware of the fact that you've fought against it and will try and quash you as a result. Many bosses sadly take personal investment in their pay, and they like to pay their favourites, and women who like challenge this sort of system end up getting unfairly treated as a result, and thus it sort of turns you away from complaining. Coming on to what you said about politics, you're saying how good a politician is often determines how far they can climb. And obviously, to be a politician, you need to like have a thing. And certainly, the system we have today, you need to have like charisma to appeal to people. You need to be a good speaker, but at the same time, that sort of reflects on the society we've created for ourselves, where women are deemed not to have to do more to sort of win people over, because like people's mindset is that a woman's not as good a speaker as a man, or a woman doesn't have as much charisma or like engagement and stuff. And again, a woman who's like speaking out and stuff and commanding a voice can be just perceived as being bitchy or being rude or like being sort of abnormal because she's speaking out and like quite loud and stuff, which obviously is a negative stereotype that society needs to combat. To say that it's just a case of like career choices and women like not having as much charisma, it's just natural that there would be more men. I don't think that's entirely fair, because again, if the law wants to recognise that women and men are the same, then, and women and men are the same, like a woman who wants to be a politician and has the skills is to be judged on her skills rather than a man, like the disparity, like that's not something which should be happening if society was equal. And if we still have no need for like, if we didn't have a need for feminism, then women and men should be equal in all fields. Like obviously, like in all fields that don't rely on like, I guess, hereditary like physical stuff. And like I can obviously, like if I say equality everywhere, then people will say, oh well, sports and stuff. But in something like politics, where like speaking, decision making, like they're gender neutral. Like you don't need to be a man or woman to make a political decision, as we've seen with plenty of competent male and female speakers and plenty of incompetent male and female speakers and politicians and stuff. So politics isn't like down to the best politicians are there because they're there, and it's women aren't there because they're just not like they haven't worked hard enough or not charismatic enough. That's a poor way of thinking, in my opinion. And then finally, I guess you said, the earnings gap and wage gap. Studies like the studies I've seen, like, they've shown that wages and earnings are like disparately in favour of women. And yeah, maybe you can say that one woman choose part-time work, but when you have to look at the wider societal like context of that, in that often we're not deemed to be like necessary one to be around at the home, and the man is paid more, therefore it's only natural that a woman's going to have to sort of sacrifice their own career to in a heterosexual relationship. She's going to have to sacrifice her own career to look after the child, to find like the problem. So it's just like what I'm saying. So she's going to have to sacrifice her own career to sorry, I'm losing my train of thought. She's going to have to sacrifice her own career or her own like sort of job aspirations, so that the higher earner can earn money, and she has to obviously save a child and therefore find part-time work to sustain themselves. Which obviously like sort of reflects on the fact that if the man was being paid more before, then the man's career is more valuable, then should that not indicate societal problems? And in general, like the fact that women are paid less on average per hour as well as like overall suggests that even when earnings are taken into consideration, there's still disparity there. And also, I would focus like more on the curve of earnings. So, whilst earnings like for working class women and men may be closer. The higher up you go, the more you earn, the more likely it is that you're a man because of the lack of social mobility or lesser social mobility for a woman. And obviously there are going to be examples of women who do earn a lot. And I'm not saying that like women who like it's impossible for a woman to become like a really top lawyer or like a judge or something. But at the same time, the chances are less likely. And you look at any organization or a political or corporate or even like just non-profit, like the majority of people at the top will be men. That shows that there's societal problems which need to be addressed in terms of gender.
Okay, just to respond, you mentioned the court case where it's gonna be a burden, but that's the society we live in today, where we have to, if we're gonna take someone to task, we have to have the burden of proof, and in a court case, and if you find out that's the case, then that's how you have to solve it if the employer is not gonna solve it that way. And a little bit of anecdotal evidence. Where I'm currently working, and there are 4 female or higher ups, and I even talked to a fellow colleague of mine who is a man, who is basically doing the same job as them, but is earning less than me and the females, because he has less experience and less years of work in his resume, which makes him earn less. That's where the discriminations, quote unquote, comes from, where people get earn less, and you also have to negotiate when you're getting the job. You have to speak up and negotiate for what you think you're worth. And when it comes to you said that I don't know which study you're talking about. I would we can do you can send it to me after the debate. Trying to search on it on air is kind of pointless, pulling up links and stuff like that. So I would just like a citation needed for that, but we can do that after the debate, and I can correct myself if I'm wrong there. But
Sure.
in general, as I said, women actually don't have I would actually claim they have more what you call it, social social mobility, I think you call it. Mobility. So sorry, because there is affirmative action in a few like STEM, and you say they have affirmative actions for women and even minorities, where meritocracy isn't like the best person for the job gets it, or for the college, basically. And that's where women have an advantage compared to a lot of men. And we also see this in college. I'm gonna give you the link afterwards as well on this. One second, I have so don't quote it wrong. I think it was 60% of bachelors are women, and 55% of women in colleges, I think it was in the US, just to be clear, are female. So men are actually the minority, and men might actually be in this generation less educated than their fathers. So I would actually dispute the fact that women have less mobility, and we also have to recognize that men and female are different, because we are we are biologically different. But when it comes to work, there is plenty of work which or all work should actually be looked at as the same, and be paid the same, except for when it comes to experience. And we even give women or mothers a whole year off here in Norway, but the fathers only get 3 months off, and that's not always they even get those 3 months for paternal leave. I'm not gonna try to. Gonna let you respond soon, so I don't go on and on. But the social mobility is far larger on women, I would actually claim. And I'm gonna let you rebut to this, and I think I'm gonna move on to my next topic. So go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So to start off with social mobility, the fact that more women are going to college, and then there's less women, the earnings are still like disparatively favoured to men. That should show that social mobility is still harder for women. Whilst obviously like more women are going to university now, and there's actually cases of universities where more women go to university, or there's more women enrolling. That doesn't translate to a job market where still the higher earners and the most like executive positions are most likely going to be a man there, or mainly men. Like there's still not the right environment for equality to be developed in society. Hence, when you talk about affirmative action, and whilst obviously everyone wants every field to be like a field with people who work their way there because of merit, and you want the best position for like the best person every single time, and you wouldn't need to have like policies in place to forward women or minorities there if society was equal as a whole, and society could be trusted to generate equality naturally. And the fact it doesn't shows why affirmative action has been needed to be taken. Like, of course, in an ideal world, we'd like to say, oh, we don't need these policies because the best person will always get the job. But that's sadly an illusion. That's not going to happen in the current environment we have. That's why affirmative actions need to be there. I'll say on paternity leave that feminists do actually campaign for paternity leave and have helped it to be established in countries, because another stereotype that feminists or feminism likes to sort of campaign for or fight against is the idea that a man can't like take time to look after their child, and that men can sort of take the traditionally role reserved for mothers. Because obviously feminism isn't about making women amazing and pushing down men. It's about the equality of the sexes. So where women have been given advantages and men have been given disadvantages, feminism will step in and combat that. It's not like, I think a misconception feminism gets is that it's simply about like making women like superior to men, when in fact no, it's about finding like equality between the two sexes. And obviously like most of them are in like against women. Like women are generally like less societally well off than men, but males have problems too. Like there's still things that men have to face, and feminism helps to combat that.
Go ahead.
It's only another quick thing. You said court cases, and you said it's the way society works. You have to provide proof. I'm not saying that a woman should go to a court case and just expect to like. Obviously, you need to have proof, but society, like the negative stereotypes are spoken about to women who do this, and to be fair, like men as well. But it's less like there's no negative stereotype about it being assertive for a man than it is for a woman. But also, and you mentioned women are worse at negotiating their like wages, which
no, I didn't say. I said you have to be able to speak up. I didn't say it's actually a thing with women, because I don't know each individual negotiating for the work. So I didn't say women in general. I just said, as I said, this male in my work who might not have negotiated his salary, so he got less than me. That's what I meant.
Okay. Though I would add that, because obviously, as I've said, the higher you go, the more likely your boss or your employer is going to be male, and obviously a female speaking. And the fact we already discussed that female politicians have problems like coming across well because of negative associations to women who speak out. The same translates to the job market, where a woman who protests their wage and pushes forward has negative connotations. And obviously there are still people who are high employers and who do have a lot of control, who see a woman's role as being quite submissive, or being less a woman shouldn't like speak out as openly as perhaps we should like see women doing if we want to fight for their wages. And I think the entire like wage market is flawed if we're saying that a woman has to fight to get better wages. Like that strikes me as like extremely like unequal if we're saying that, if we're acknowledging that there is equality but women just don't fight hard enough for it, or like women don't, or experience as well. Like experience is obviously important, but the fact that we've seen like the inequality not go away for such a long period of time, that we've been using like the system of capitalism, and that should tell you there's problems there. And I know, like you said earlier, I've spoken for quite a while, so you go ahead.
I'm gonna move on, but I forgot to mention this when I talked. But on average, also men work more than women. I think the number is like 32 hours for women and 38 hours for men on average. I might be mistaken. I don't have the figures on hand, but it's something that like this. So you also have to take that into consideration when you promote someone. Yeah, I think we can move on to next topic, and it's something actually you mentioned, because men actually experience a lot of inequality when it comes to the family courts and just court in general compared to women. Because in most cases, even when the man is the breadwinner, or the person who earns the most money in the family, the female or the mother of the family gets to keep the child. It's even like this here, and you also have a lot of women not, or in 50% of cases, I think it was in the US, where even when convicted, they aren't incarcerated and have to go to prison, and men have 60%. No, sorry, women have 60% less of a sentence when actually incarcerated, and you have feminists who want to remove police in like black neighborhoods. You have like people in Black Lives Matter wanting to remove police all entirely, and when I just can't agree with feminism on this, when a lot of the problems stem from things like let's say the Duluth model, which automatically makes the man the perpetrator. I have the quote here from the Duluth model. Domestic abuse happens when men believe they have the right to authority over women or who are intimate partners. And in UK, there are 16 shelters for men and 4,000 for women. So in general, there's a high inequality. I'm gonna let you speak now.
So to start with, male court cases or family courts where men face disadvantages when facing the problems like of child custody, after following a divorce, or like child abuse and stuff. Whilst I do agree that more needs to be done for like males in most situations, like fathers do admittedly face some problems in that field. I think that that's not necessarily to undermine the feminist movement, because feminism obviously is about like equality of the sexes. So a feminist with good arguments will argue in favor of those cases. I mean, I think you have to take them individually, because obviously every sort of like relationship there is different and individual. So it's important that you don't like cast blankets on like saying feminism that ignores this issue, because I think whilst there are issues which never like there are issues that perhaps take more priority, obviously this is an important issue for a lot of people, so it's important that there's better judiciary like representation here, like, and problem solving. Again, feminism does say, or it's important to distinguish that feminism goes against the idea that men shouldn't be the primary or can't be the primary contact with a child. Like a man can be a central figure in a child's life. There's nothing wrong with that. And feminism sort of debunks the stereotype that a man can't do that. I don't think it's particularly fair to criticize feminism through this lens when no rational feminist will say, men shouldn't be given the same rights as a woman to see their child. It's situational. If a court case, if there's the parent that's better suited to take priority with the child, should be given that suitability. And if it's a man, then so be it. I don't think that's necessarily criticism of feminism there, which manifests. I didn't quite catch what you're saying about Black Lives Matter and feminism. If you wanted to say that again, so I could respond to it, if that's all right.
Oh well, I was just making the link where you have a lot of in US we have there 50% of the prisons are filled with minorities or and there are people in the Black Lives Matter movement who are advocating that police stop coming to the neighborhoods when that actually hurts the men in their community. That was kind of my point with the whole 60%. I think.
Okay, well, I think there's again some obviously I don't think police should be removed, but the whole point of Black Lives Matter is to or one of the points is to address the serious problems within the police. So if there are people saying the police need to be removed, perhaps that's a little bit radical, but serious reform, whilst the police often operate with racist or bigoted views of how societies work, and therefore go into black neighborhoods with aggressive, forceful tactics which don't solve any problems, create more hostility, and unfairly profile and racially discriminate against black citizens. So whilst it sounds silly to say, police should be removed, you can see where they're coming from, because in many cases, removing the police would remove a lot of the violence that you'd see on the streets, and often the police do such a bad job protecting people that it's more beneficial and more safe to not have them there. Obviously, in the long run, you'd want to have a police force which properly cooperates with the communities and properly works to protect the citizens to prevent crime. And obviously, you don't want to have genuinely criminal behaviour happening, and you want the police to be stopping that. But I think the whole point is that while there are so many problems with the police, and there's so many innocent and people being targeted by the system, which deems you a criminal based on your skin colour, which unfortunately is still the case. As many people want to pretend it's not, it really is. So that's the whole point of Black Lives Matter, I feel. And I guess I'm not sure how feminism sort of links to that as such. I guess.
You have you have intersectional feminists and the
definitely.
and you have the three members, founding members who are females who are actually feminists. That was kind of my point.
My mistake. No, well, certainly, there are some questionable individuals in Black Lives Matter, but that doesn't mean the whole movement is defunct.
Yeah, I'm not saying everyone in Black Lives Matter is a feminist or. No, I'm just making it clear if anyone's watching as well. So, go ahead.
May I finish my point on domestic abuse? Or
go ahead.
Well, domestic abuse, the stat you produced about male shelters and female shelters, I think is quite an important one, because there's a similar thing with rape as well. Male victims of rape are often there's loads of negative situations, connotations about that.
I'm glad you mentioned that.
Again, sorry.
I'm glad you mentioned it. Go ahead. I was just
It's important. I mean, feminism, good feminism, the equality of the sexes, is going to address that as well. They want to debunk the idea that men who are raped are weak and stuff, and pussies, I guess. There's no one sensible in the feminist movement or in feminism saying that. The problems are, but then flipping that over, there's still lots of problems for female victims of domestic abuse. The idea that lots of people don't even consider rape and sexual assault within a marriage to be rape or sexual assault. As you said, lots of people still view men's women submitting to a man in a marriage not to be a problem if it hurts a woman. It's just part of marriage. The fact that the stats are so high for like domestic abuse, and then wider than that, like sexual assault and sexual harassment. The fact these like there's so many instances of this happening in the West, which is supposedly like fixed equality and like produced equality between men and women, like show that feminism is still needed to combat this. Because whilst problems predominantly exist for women, and obviously we're not disregarding like men at all, because obviously like male rape and stuff still exists, but whilst these problems still happen, like you need feminism to combat it. Because if you're not actively like fighting for change, how's change going to happen? Anyway, you go ahead.
Yeah, but see, when you're talking about men's issues right here, feminism is for the definition says for women's rights, and you have the men's rights activists who get constantly censored at like panels and events where the fire alarms are pulled, and we have the Red Pill movie getting censored by feminists in. It happened now twice in Australia, where they stopped the movie from getting shown at events, and you have feminists doing the kill all men and masculinity, so fragile, toxic masculinity, waste his time, and things like that, which affect a man. And you have the Duluth model, which I quoted, which was made by feminists. I would actually agree to some of the points you made, which rape in a marriage should be, in a home should be looked at or treated as rape. I actually agree with you on that issue. But we see feminists saying one thing, and you have the male tears and kill all men rhetoric from feminism, which says the other thing. See, that's where me and most people have an issue. I know you debated War Corps on a lot of issues, but he's very crude and very loud, and he was drunk, so he probably didn't make the best points, to be honest. But you also mentioned sexual assault and harassment. Research actually backs your point, where this is only online, of course. I don't know the numbers in real life because I didn't check before the stream. But online, if women are sexually harassed or more. But when it comes to overall harassment and threats, men get this more from. This is from Pew Research, and you also have women who are, I think it was 55. Again, I might be quoting the statistic wrong, but it was the majority of women who actually harassed other women online. And this is kind of the issue I have with feminism. Now I'm not using collectively, because I wouldn't claim that you are going around trying to censor or silencing someone, but that's often what I see. So you have the bad eggs and in your movement, and I don't see a lot of good, to be honest. So you can reply to that.
Well, to start off with, I think that when you the censorships of that, was it the Red Pill film or like a film about, I'm not sure what it was, but I think that personally, like, I don't agree with censorship of that form. I agree with criticism, and I think that if that film were to have come out, I don't know if it still is or not, but if it were to have come out, then yeah, absolutely, we could have torn it to shreds, because it would have likely said a lot of questionable things. I don't agree with censorship like that, but I don't see that as a widespread issue within feminism. I don't think the movement is any like debased just because a few questionable individuals exist in it and making silly like arguments within it. Like, for instance, for like people like individuals like War Corps or Bearing or whoever else is identifying as an anti-feminist, it wouldn't be fair for me to criticize them by saying, oh, this anti-feminist is a rapist and in prison now. Like, I wouldn't use another group to criticize them when their own arguments can be criticized individually. Obviously, like, people saying things like kill all men and like saying that women are better than men and stuff, like, it's easy for feminism to be argued against by using them as an example. And I think it's important to, I know you said that I've gone over this before with Walkoffs, but I need to distinguish that they don't represent the movement. Like, they're not like good advocates for feminism if they're saying things like kill all men. And I can, through the lens of that feminism sort of gained on YouTube, I can absolutely see why people would be turned away. Because if all you knew about feminism was derived from people who've made like entire careers out of like debunking it and stuff, then yeah, you probably would be turned away from feminism. But I don't think they're good advocates for their own like ideologies, because as people have shown, people like, for instance, to use one example, Sargon of Akkad have been shown to deliberately or unintentionally like misread information of their own like studies they've used. They've been shown up in like conversations with feminists, like not even like, it's like we're having a like civil debate now, we're talking easily, like Sargon of Akkad debated Christy Winters and like was shown up essentially for talking rubbish.
Yeah, well, I don't want to cut you off, but I would actually agree. Sargon didn't actually do the best of job, so I would actually agree with you there. Now he did make a few good points, but I would actually agree he wasn't actually having the best arguments against Christy Winters. So yeah. So I would actually agree with you on a particular that stream, but go ahead, make the rest of your points.
Well, I'm glad you agree with me, and once obviously we've seen those videos, so we can agree on that. But then lots of people won't see that, will only see the videos they've been watching on feminism, and thus gain an entirely warped and negative view of it. And that's the whole point. If you view feminism through the lens that has been constructed, then yeah, I can see why people would disagree with it. But if you read about it, if you listen to like genuine proper feminists, then you get the better sense of movement. You don't get the like perception that it's kill all men. You get the sense that it's about the equality that we like strive to find in society, and that yeah, there are a lot of problems facing women in today's society which need to be addressed. On the topic of what we've got next, harassment. I don't think harassment is, if we look at it through the lens that it is mainly like male harassment happening. Obviously, like violence between men is more common, I think, but then they were missing two key points. That male violence is largely not sexual. Obviously, it can be sexual, but if a man is harassed, it's likely not going to be sexual. It'll be like just a violent fight or something, or an assault or something. And
you have one issue. Sorry to interrupt you again, but just to say this, but you have the high statistic of male rape in American prisons, where that happens. That's the only instance I can think of where that actually happens. But go ahead.
I mean, I'll come on to prisons in a bit because it's a little bit different with prisons, because obviously they're like more male criminals than female criminals. But yeah, harassment between men, like people recognize that like fighting and violence and assault is bad. A lot of people don't think sexual harassment is a problem. And obviously, if we look at the internet stuff, we're gonna like obviously things like that are more easy to distinguish. But lots of people don't see that something like catcalling or like things that you wouldn't necessarily perceive to be harassment on first glance are harassment and aren't acceptable. And you only have to look at recently, like there was an article on the Guardian essentially questioning why the focus around sexual assault was on talking women into defending themselves and stuff, and like essentially placing all the efforts and requirements at the feet of women, the victims, rather than the perpetrators of the violence. You have to look at that to see that a lot of the talk around sexual harassment is engineered at the wrong place. Like, all too often people ask, could this person have done more to prevent the harassment, or why was this person in this area wearing those clothes and stuff, rather than saying, well, why has this person like got the idea in his head that he can just speak to women like that on the street or harass them or assault them. Like, there's still sort of a culture of victim blaming, like in a way. And again, when people hear that, I think people instantly think, oh, well, you're saying that rape victims are laughed at and stuff, and obviously like society isn't openly like decrying rape victims, but there's still an air of like this woman could have done more to prevent their assault, which we have, which sadly it was like it needs to go. Like that's the inequality people are talking about when they're like discussing feminism, and you only have to look at the amount of news like shows or news coverage which has invited these people on to discuss and air their views, which then gives normalization to loads of other people watching that sexual assault can be prevented by the victim, or that some of the blame on rape lies with the rape victim. Like there's still drastic like inequality. Like you wouldn't see after like a burglary that a burglar advocate coming on saying like, oh well, you know, if they didn't own so many possessions, they wouldn't have been robbed. So why is it the same with rape? Why is it, oh well, this person should have like thought about how they presented themselves? Like there's the inequality that people are talking about. Anyway, you go ahead. I was speaking quite a bit. So.
Yeah, if you hear me typing, it's because I have to write some stuff down you say so I can actually remember them. Because we're going, we are rebutting each other's points. So, you say feminism, it's not censoring, but you said genuine. That kind of sounds like the no true Scotsman fallacy. By saying these people are the genuine ones and these aren't the genuine ones. When you brand yourself with feminism, you have to take the good with the bad. So when feminists did the Equal Pay Act in US, for example, in 1963, which second wave feminists advocated for, you have to take the good and you have to take the bad with what I mentioned. And I'm just clarifying. You said the people opposing feminism are an ideology or have an opposing ideology. Well, just to clarify.
Or like anti-feminist arguments, I guess, or the idea that feminism is not needed.
Yeah. See, I would say you're wrong there because there's no ideology there, to be honest. It's just criticism of feminism in general, and nobody in the anti-SJW in the community are really like coming together. Of course there are like collaborations. I would be an idiot to say that doesn't happen and people talk to each other, but there's no real movement compared to like say feminism, because they don't gather. All you can say is like the skeptic community, but they also have different political leanings and things they have to say against feminism. Like you could say alt-right or Nazis or whatever are anti-SJWs, but it's not the same as like me not liking feminism. I like I said, I wouldn't call myself an SJW anti-feminist because the atheism, there's no real movement. It's just what you say. You don't believe in God, or you don't think something is that. So about that. And you have to learn women to defend themselves. I would actually advocate for anyone to defend themselves with martial arts or something like that, because it's a bad world out there. I know you have the Marxist leaning saying we shouldn't have to be afraid to be attacked or raped or sexually assaulted or harassed. But that's not how the world is. There are evil people out there with bad intentions, and having this, I believe it's in Britain, where you have the teach boys not to rape classes, but the people who are attending these classes aren't the ones who are going to rape. And feminism has on other issues censored game time and time again. Now, are you familiar with Gamergate?
Sort of. Like, I know about Anita Sarkeesian and stuff. I'm sort of aware of Gamergate.
Okay, because I've been very active in that because I'm a huge gamer, and I've seen a lot of games being censored, and unethical journalism which have feminist leanings, who have censored art. You have in Australia where you have Target, where you had feminists pull force Target to pull GTA 5 off their shelves, and you have people using you can run over hookers and it being misogynistic, or games being misogynistic in general, or racist, which isn't true because you can kill anyone in Grand Theft Auto. And if you don't want to play that game, there are plenty of games out there for you. But still, there are feminists out there who want to censor games and have actually succeeded for example, Dead or Alive, which is not coming to the West because feminists actually stopped it, or not literally stopped it, but had so much complaints about it that the publisher did not want to deal with it. And you have also translations where games were censored of their content because it was somehow sexist in some way. You can respond.
Some interesting points raised there. Let's start. You're saying that feminism, same as genuine feminism, and that you have to take a good to a bad. I think there's a lot more good than bad. I think that a lot of the time the internet creates, again, the perception of feminism, but there's a lot of individuals who are like insane. Like you see these channels where it's like cringe feminist memes or whatever it is, but somewhere you see like a woman like shouting and being like debunked and stuff just by like a few easy points and stuff. And yeah, I think obviously there are going to be individuals who don't do a good job of representing feminism, but if you were to choose the good with bad, then the majority of feminists would be falling under the good, surely, because our points are literally that we want equality and equality doesn't exist, and that we have to work hard to get it. And that's the like, I guess the only argument I can say to that. We need the good or the bad would be like most feminists don't advocate for like reducing men's rights or killing men or whatever. Like it's only a few like crazy individuals. Like every movement's going to have some like nut jobs coming along and sort of taking their stance on it, but you have to just ignore them and look at the wider points. Coming on to anti-feminism, anti-SJWs being like not a movement in your idea, it was just criticism of feminism. Whilst I don't think that you're the sort of person to say like anti-SJW like movement and stuff, I think that if you look at the sort of crowds or groups of people who do like look at feminism as something that needs to be fought against and stopped, and there's people who call feminism just propaganda and they need to like properly stop it. I think that it is fair to say that there is that sort of crowd and group. I do agree that it's silly to sort of equate being alt-right and being a Nazi to being anti-SJW, but I will say that there are a lot of
that to be clear, it was with hyperbolic to make the extreme example. Go on.
I mean, I certainly don't think criticism of anyone who criticizes an SJW or a feminist. I mean, I don't particularly like the term SJW to begin with, but criticism of SJWs in quotation marks and feminists doesn't equate to being an alt-right or being a Nazi, obviously. But most alt-rights and most Nazis won't stand with feminism. That is what I would say to that. I mean, certainly, I suppose we go a bit political if we go into alt-right too much, but it's no surprise to me that feminism is often criticised by these groups because I mean, they don't even recognise that there's problems in society full stop, let alone that there's still more to be done with feminism. And I'm going on to self-defense and harassment. Obviously, it's important to be aware of the world around you. Like, you can't expect in today's world just to like have no like problems at your door and just to be able to walk around anywhere and be safe and stuff. But my problem is, or feminism's problem is, that too much of society is engineered towards telling women that they should do things to protect themselves from harassment. Almost that harassment is an inevitability in some circumstances, rather than like addressing harassment as what it is and like combating rape and assaults and stuff from like through education and communication. Because again, I think a lot of the problem is that most people aren't going to say, "Oh, well, I'm a rapist," or "I would rape or something." Obviously, people aren't going to say that. Obviously, you're going to have a few individuals who would, again, be like lesser of society. But there are people who don't get any views or any opinions that question harassment and say that, "Oh, this is wrong." So you end up people growing up thinking that it's okay to like openly yell like obscenities at women and stuff, and like catcall and stuff, and think that it's not an issue and think there's no problem there, which represents a problem because obviously you're harassing women in many cases, or making someone feel uncomfortable or devalued for their gender. So that's where I would say that like just saying, "Oh, learn like self-defense and like defend yourself," is not an actual solution to the problem. Like you have to look at society as a whole. If we're seeing like so much harassment, to say, well, oh, why is this still an issue? And the answer lies in the lack of education and awareness around it. And we can tie that to like sexual education, because I mean, obviously the sex ed does exist, but it's laughable in some cases. Like it's not taken very seriously. I still think there's a lack of like awareness around like sexual health in many cases. Like you only have to look at the fact that in my country, the government does not consider tampons to be an essential item. So you have VAT tax, VAT even, on tampons, which I don't think is particularly like good. That shows you how women's sexual health is still like mistreated by people. To come on to the landmine that is gaming and Gamergate, I thought you raised some good points with GTA. I mean, I have a conflicted stance on that, because I feel as though GTA, for instance, it has like the way it represents women in some cases is questionable, like with the female characters, but at the same time, like, I don't think it's the sort of game where you can say that running over hookers or running over prostitutes is sexist. I think that in that particular example, Australia is quite a conservative country, so it doesn't surprise me that there were people, or feminists in quotation marks, who would say, "Oh, we'll take it off the shops." I think that whilst games, like, I don't think a game on its own is designed to be sexist or racist. I don't think that an individual development team will say, "Oh, we want to devalue our women, so we'll put them in skimpy outfits and like make them all dumb and stuff." Like, obviously, that's not the case. But if you look at the tropes, I think that it's important to like consider that, why are the majority of women in games that made a certain way? Why are the whole point of sort of Sarkeesian's work, for instance? I know it takes a lot of flack, and yeah, there are legitimate grounds for disagreement, and I don't agree with her on anything. But at the same time, like, you have to question why, like, when a woman is in a game, there are traits that she will fit into. And personally, I think the debate, I don't think it's to say that we shouldn't have women dressed a certain way, because that's silly. I think it's important that choice is made, and that to me, a woman who's dressed like with less clothes shouldn't be controversial. But obviously, the way society is, you end up with it's a woman dressed in like less clothes being used as just like a way to feed male gaze, I guess. But the whole point of Sarkeesian's work is to say, why are video games containing so many women who like act or dress or appear in a certain way? And I think it's been a necessary one, because as sort of the feedback to her, obviously there was some genuine criticism, but the fact that so many people took to social media and stuff to like harass Sarkeesian and like flag down any attempts to discuss video games shows that there is a problem, because if so many people see it as such an issue that someone dares to like question the nature of video games, then and video games, well, not even something that's hugely important, just video games. If so many people want to question that shows there's a problem. If so many people are so defensive over it. But I do agree that some of the criticism around video games and censorship and stuff is silly, because I don't think you get the right way to go about it. It's just to censor games, especially something like GTA, which clearly doesn't like. It's not exactly like something where it's only a prostitute you can run over. Like, you can do a lot of things in GTA. So, but yeah. Anyway, you go ahead. I've been speaking for quite a while, so.
Yeah, I took down a few notes. You said basically, in a broader sense, we need more education. But I said they are the people who we are teaching this to aren't the ones committing the so-called rapes, and we have this rape statistics of 1 in 4 that are outright lies that are being perpetuated by even President Obama. Even though if I was a American like in 2008 and 2012, I would have voted for him because I think he was a clear better choice. Things like this are being spread by at least prominent feminists, and you also have like Julie Bindel who said she wanted to close men in and walk them like library books to so females could come and get for a walk or something, and she even said all men are rapists and should be shot, basically. And this is like the rhetoric from feminism, which you have to, which people take an issue with, because you don't see. You can be a feminist, like Tiki Bomber in the chat, who is a feminist, but is also calling other feminists out, because that's issue. And no, I don't say you, because you are actually braver than a lot of people on the so-called regressive left, which people are calling it these days, but the feminist side, which are blocking people and not having any discussion, or honest discussion at least. Just a quick back, and in a free society, it's a risk we have to take when we step outside the door. There could be an airplane that drops on our head, or it could be someone stabbing us. Rape is part of what a free society is. We can do more or to stop them, because one rape is one rape too many. I completely agree. But to say it's just pure education, I don't think that's just the only solution. And victim blaming, I don't think anyone is victim blaming a rape victim. There are, of course, instances where this happens, but I don't think in general people victim blame women who get raped, because if you wear wrong clothes, you have a harder time to defend yourself, because it's like a lion seeking the weakest in the herd, basically. So it's sad, but that's how it is. We have to take precautions, even as men, because men are actually the majority of murders in the world, or in the West at least. And when it comes to like the games, see, with Anita Sarkeesian, I would actually like to hear what she has to say if it was honest, but it's not. Her sources, she has stated in a lot of her work, is actually has no relation to her to what she's criticizing, and she has been debunked many times. I could do a video on her debunking the games I've played, and actually say why she's wrong. I mean, she did the Hitman thing, which she cherry picked, and actually lied, and she has stolen video footage. And we even had, I don't know if you're familiar with the Crash Override network, but there was a leak which actually confirmed that there wasn't, there might have been actual harassment, but the majority of the harassment which was shared in the press was a lie, even admitted by her close friends who are supposedly sharing this to other medias, which is a anti-harassment thing. And For anyone who is doubting this, you can search the crash override network leaks. And even WAM, if there's any doubt, Gamergate never harassed when there was almost half a percentage of the tweets WAM, Women Action Media, I think it's called, said less than a percentage, almost half a percentage of the tweets in Gamergate were harassing towards her or people in general. So this has been debunked many times, and even in the Hitman, which he said women are treated in a bad way, because there's one level, so to speak, where you can kill strippers. But see, the point of that stage is to go through them without killing them. If you actually kill them, you get punished. Your actual mission in that level. So yeah, you can. I've gone on long enough. Go ahead.
No worries. Well, firstly, I mean, I've gone on for quite a bit at times too. So, anyway, rape statistics. The 1 in 4 stat. I mean, obviously, it is conducted from surveys. I mean, and it fluctuates between different numbers, but it's still between like 1 in 4 and like 1 in 5, no, or like 1 in 6. Like, it's still a high enough number for significant numbers of women to be under threat. And the numbers of if that's only like rape, if you include like assault and harassment, which are obviously not as bad as rape, but it's still like sexually formed like discrimination, it increases. Like, and you only have to look at the consistency of these numbers across like the globe to sort of see a problem. The fact there's like 1 in 3 assaults worldwide should say there's still, and obviously that includes areas that are less like developed than the West, but there's still problems which feminism needs to address on that front. On a brief overlay, Obama, you're right in saying, we'll see better choice, like in 2012. I mean, me personally, like, obviously I've already said I'm a Marxist, so I wouldn't like, I don't particularly like Democrats or Republicans, but I would never vote Republican over Democrat. Like, I could never vote Republican. That's pretty much me. Then moving on from that, you say educating to people you don't need to. So I in a way, I can see why you're coming from. Obviously, like the majority of people who go through these classes are not going to turn into rapists, like regardless of whether they've had education or not. But society needs to, like, there's still people who you can alter. Like, it's reductive to say, oh, well, education won't change anything because rapists will still rape otherwise, and you can't stop rape. It's just a part of society. Like 100 years.
Well, on that point, see, I would actually see it's more of a mental issue. I agree it would actually help with more education, but it's going on all the wrong in all the wrong ways, because they're so-called educating people where it's not needed. That's kind of what I mean.
Well, I mean, I've proposed big reforms to sort of sexual like health and sexual discussions and stuff in schools, because I think that often it becomes too condescending, hence people don't take it seriously. Like, there needs to be better discussion around it rather than sort of like be closed-minded, like taboo sort of like that we have over at the moment. But going back to what I was saying, like, you could just as easily say, oh, like 100 years ago, oh well, like racism is just a part of life and it'll always be racist, and you just have to watch out and do more to not like keep yourself safe. And there's all sorts of, like, to LGBT people in like the 60s and 70s and stuff, like, oh, well, there's loads of people who really don't agree with you, so just keep your like homosexuality a closet, keep it safe and hidden, and no one will bother you and stuff. And obviously, like, you can say that and maybe it will like reduce your chances, maybe, but that's such a negative, like, reductive way of going about things, and so obviously unfair to people in question, but it doesn't solve anything. Like, and there's still enough like assaults and stuff going on to like aim to have it lowered. Like, society should always aim to lower the number of crimes it has, regardless of what the nature of the crime is. So, no, of course, there's a mental state of a rapist that's in question, but I think we also need to consider that rapists aren't all just people who like run around in like ski masks and like drag women off into alleyways and stuff. Like,
I agree. I totally agree.
Exactly. Like, it happens to people, like, I think it's 90% of it will be someone that you know. The victim knows the assaulter, so it's not a case of they've been like escorted off and stuff and raped. It's that, like, it's happened within like close vicinity to them. It's not something that some insane person has just targeted them. It's someone that like they know. It's someone who'd be otherwise considered a normal person a lot of the time to them. So that's where the education is needed, that people can think that some of the forms of assault are acceptable. That's why like people want communication and education advanced. And what we're going on to, Julie Bindel. It's like, again, I'm not aware. I've seen the quote. I'm not too sure on it, but if she has said that and she's meant it, which I don't think she does, but if she meant it, then as far as I'm concerned, she's not a legitimate source for like these arguments. Like, and feminism isn't, again, a movement isn't derailed by one person's dodgy quote. I thought the regressive.
I was just giving you an example of that. I wasn't trying to smear the whole movement, just to clear it up.
Yeah, sure, yeah. The phrase "regressive left" is somewhat ironic because left-wing politics are all about the advancement of the individual and society and the state, but I think it's sort of a misconception. It implies that left-wing politics are about the regression of society, and they really are.
Well, to be fair, I think people mean like the extreme authoritarian left. I think that's what they mean.
But are those people like left as a whole anyway? Like, I think we look at someone like Hillary Clinton, who lots of people on the right like to say, "Oh, she's a leftist, she's a regressive left." When
I agree, she's not left.
Yeah, exactly.
She's not left at all.
Anyone with any sort of political background can tell you just straight away that she's quite clearly not left wing. Like, she's not even of the left of her own party, but people will just say, "Oh, well, she's a leftist," and then confuse that. I mean, that's more of a political sort of debate about like where the left is, and obviously I'll have some pretty strong views on that. But yeah, the term aggressive left is just ridiculous, I think. And then I think I've already sort of risks. You said risks we have to take in society. Like, again, obviously there's risks, and whenever you do anything, like there's always a risk of crime happening. But the nature of sexual crime, where lots of people view it as something the like victim can do something to prevent, I think that's the wrong debate we should be having. Like, it's not. And he said rape is part of a free society. Like, obviously, like there's always going to be cases of like rape. There's always going to be like an individual who will rape someone. But that obviously, that no one said like, oh well, if society is sexist if we don't completely eradicate rape. But we need to like seriously reduce the mindset we have where rape is an inevitability, and say, oh well, how can we prevent these from happening in the future? And you create fewer people who will commit this sort of crime if you educate them from a young age. It's like you're going to create less racists if you show people that racism is wrong and why it's wrong. Hence, like, why less racists were born in the 60s and 70s and 80s, because they went through reformed school systems which showed, and even just having like in some cases racism, if you're growing up with black children or non-white children, then you're less likely to have these like views of that, like, for instance, the views perpetuated by the KKK or something, where like black people have lower IQ. Like, if they're in the same class as you, then you're not going to have that view. And if you're discussing, or if you're told why racism is wrong, then you're not going to have those views. Hence why it's lowered drastically since the like 1900s and stuff. Likewise with sexual assault. If you discuss why it's wrong, then less people will think it's right. So that's what I mean when I'm talking about like education and stuff, and why we can make it so that it's less likely to happen. And then I suppose, where are we going? Oh, victim blaming. So you're saying, like, you said that there's always going to be a need for, like, no one in society blames victims, what you said, or no one really does. But I think obviously people aren't saying it's your fault if you've raped directly, but you look at I read a study, which again I'll send to you at the end, but essentially like looking at how the police dealt with rapes and the attitude around that, and in often cases it's really bad. Like, often police will just say, oh, you'll have to deal with it yourself, if they don't deem the problem serious enough. Like, which is sadly, like, obviously, like, it's important that you make these claims based on truth, but the fact that people can just go in and say, like, oh, evidence or get out, basically, like, that's showing a complete lack of faith in the system. Like, you look at the high numbers of cases that have made court and then been found successful when, like, the evidence has been presented. That shows that, like, more often than not, a woman is not going to lie about being raped. Like, obviously, like, you don't want to be wrongly like indicting people, but the numbers aren't very high for people who make false rape accusations. And then it's all well saying that like, people don't believe rape victims, but often like the psychological effects that have been left on rape victims through the system, like enhanced by the system that has failed them, show there's a need for reform there. The idea that a woman has to prove if she's lying or not, basically, like from a lot of juries, which is sad to see. And then, as I said on the page, last of them is Anita Sarkeesian. I don't doubt that she has some flaws as an individual. I mean, I'm sure I've seen the things that she's got wrong in terms of games and stuff, and that she's taking things out of context. And I don't think that she's necessarily the best advocate for feminism sometimes. But I think what's important to consider is that she's one individual making like points which lots of other feminists have made. Like, the facts still remain, but there are problems in like video games and the way and just media as a whole, like the way women are viewed through that lens, which need to like evolve and keep up with the times. There's nothing wrong with adapting games to like have even more characters that are female, or like more like, or less sort of less track with female characters. So like, instead of all looking at sort of the same thing, like diversity and characters and stuff, or whatever, like there's nothing wrong with having debates about that and showing why it's a good thing to have more inclusivity. As for Gamergate, I mean, again, I said at the start, I'm not really as like aware on that. I'm not sure all the stats and stuff. And there was hyperbole from both sides, but let's not kid ourselves. There were like there was harassment going on. There was, but all the talk of ethical like journalism, like it's important to like if a better debate needs to be had, I think, from it. But again, I don't want to focus on it too much because I wouldn't like, I'm not too aware of what was going on. But I've just seen something in the chat actually. Anita shames women for acting independently. I think that it's important to remember that feminism, like, it's choice. Like, the way a woman dresses should be choice. I just think that all too often in video games, it's like you have a character written like she's wearing be like basically nothing, but it's like, oh, it's my choice to express myself like this. And yeah, maybe it'd be more believable if the same thing didn't happen in like loads of other games too. Like the you shouldn't have to have a character who always has to like. Or the only way you can present your female characters is through like a sexy body and stuff, and the society's view of what an attractive body is as well. Like, that thing has to sort of point that's been made. Not that like you shouldn't have this, but like there should be like better reasons for having it than just it gets male players horny or whatever. But anyway, you go ahead. I've spoken for ages.
I saw someone mentioning this because Anita does denounce like choice feminism, and she went to the end with Zoe Quinn and said that cyberbullying or saying you suck is basically the same as real life violence. People are willing to actually have this discussion when it comes to games, but it's being done in an intellectually dishonest way that people are getting sick of it. And I agree, there was probably harassment from both sides, but again, as I can give you the study that showed less than 1% was in Gamergate, coming from Gamergate supporters who were actually harassing tweets. They had like, I don't know, 10,000 tweets or something like that. And I see you have men's rights activists who advocate for men, but are actually looked at as evil. There have been protests like when things are shown, like the red pill, for example, and when Amazing Atheist was shunned when he actually tried to help girls in the third world, while Anita Sarkeesian did nothing, and there was no counter from the feminists who so-called tried to show that they cared about or basically put money where their mouth is. And when it comes to the that there have been a lot of claims that if a man and woman both get drunk and they have sex, that basically makes the man a rapist. And you also have a catcalling in Nottingham, where you live, where they've made that a law which has been advocated by feminists. And recently was the International Men's Day, but last year when they tried to just have a day about men's issue, a feminist, Jess Phillips, just laughed at this guy who and said it was ridiculous to talk about men's issues. When it comes to you mentioned you have to prove rape. See, as I mentioned before, with the wage thing, if you get paid less, it's just we live in a society where we need proof. We need the burden of proof if we're gonna claim something and take it to the court of law. That's just how it is. You can't just say you have been raped. We have instances with, like, the mattress girl. And you have the UVA case. I even have a neighbor who was actually jailed for a false rape accusation. False rape accusations actually ruin men's careers and life, because they lose the jobs, and more often than not, the people or the women making these false rape accusations get off scot-free. They don't get like defamation cases against them. And let's see, was there anything I wanted to go ahead? I'm gonna try to find my other point. You can rebut to that.
Yeah, okay, sure. So what, you're just gonna come in when you found your other point or something, or?
No, go ahead. I'm just gonna find it. I have to look through my notes.
Okay. So again, Zoe Quinn and Anissa Sarkeesian going to the UN. I'm not actually sure of the details of this. If they equated "you've sucked" to being the same as like actual assault or something, or?
Yeah, she did say that there are multiple clips on it on YouTube actually. Shows them saying this.
I think that's probably the wrong way to go about it. But again, they're individuals and they don't represent the whole thing. But also, whilst I think it's important to discuss why it's happening, I don't think censorship and changing the law is probably the best idea of going about it. Though having said that, I mean, the backlash that the two have received, like regardless of the point some of their critics were making, the backlash they received that happened, and for many other female gamers, I guess, or females in the media industry, shows there is a need for discussion. I don't think you can dress that up in any way. Like, I'm not saying you are, but there has been a need for discussion given what happened. Likewise with Gamergate, I'm sure there were a few questions that need to be raised, but the reaction that many of the critics had wasn't good. Men's rights activists even. Whilst I think that there are a few issues that men's rights activists have raised which are important, the movement itself is so like misguided. I think obviously there's a need for like discussion around men, as I've said in this like debate, like men's issues and things that affect men, like no one said or no one sane has said is a problem. Like, and feminism incorporates discussion around this because it wants to like debunk the idea that men can't talk about their issues, or men can't like discuss like mental health or like fatherhood or things like that and stuff. Like, the problem that men MRAs have, I think, is that loads of them, or their main centre point seem to be like combating feminism and saying, feminism is not needed because we have issues, and MRAs like need more focus than feminists do, like, which sort of makes no sense because feminism not only like it's about both sexes and the equality for men and women on different scales. So in many cases for men, but then you're losing people who would otherwise speak about your issues. Were you not claiming that their issues were irrelevant and stuff? And having seen clips of some of their conferences and where they're literally like using terms like dyke and slut to talk about like women and getting a woman up there as essentially like tokenistic figures to like validate their movement somehow, as though like just having a woman there somehow makes you not a sexist. Like they're essentially.
Could you repeat that because you kind of dropped out a little bit?
Sorry, where do you need to go from? Where did I start to drop out?
Like the 10 last seconds because I couldn't hear anything.
Okay, sorry. So when I'll talk about MRA conferences where they like essentially insult feminists, call them sluts and dykes and whatever, like, and then they'll have like one woman there to sort of speak out against feminism too, as though having a woman there just somehow makes you not a sexist because I know a woman, therefore I'm not a sexist. So that would be my criticism of MRA. It's like their entire movement, like it's not a good way of illustrating their issues. Like if they wanted a proper debate, then they wouldn't be lashing out against feminism when feminism helps talks about the issues they're talking about and does so better than the way they do. So then we go on to the amazing atheist, who, I mean, from what I've seen of him, he seems a deeply unpleasant individual, I have to say.
Just on this point, like, I think he's a narcissist and a greedy fuck when it comes to candid, which I have voiced my opinion on various times because it's deeply unethical. But I'm specifically talking about this charity. Like, I'm not the biggest fan of Amazing Atheist now lately myself, because he lately asked for $3 for him to commentate on Ghostbusters. So he's a greedy fuck. But I'm serious. That's retarded to put it in that harsh language. But I'm specifically talking about this this charity, regardless of what you think of Amazing Atheist, because I think he as I said, I have my strong opinions on him.
Well, we only have to look at his videos where it's just him claiming that feminists are like wrong and stuff, and endless videos about like how a minority or woman or whoever is wrong and stuff, and they shouldn't be voicing their opinions, or they're saying their opinions is wrong and stuff. Like, that's the entire nature of his channel, in my opinion. And plus, I mean, I'm an atheist, and to be honest, he gives atheists a bit of a bad name, to be honest, because if you want to learn more about atheism and you type in atheist onto YouTube and he pops up, then it could scare someone off, to be honest. I mean, his channel is very much it's not a good channel. As you said, he's also just he's narcissistic and somewhat greedy. But if what you're saying about his charity appeal or his funding was true, and obviously that's a bit silly, but again, the wider his stance on so many things, I'm not surprised feminists criticize him, because he's got a lot of questionable views and points, as well as being a dreadful individual to go to for arguments of that nature. So then next, I've got drunk sex. If a man and a woman are drunk and they have sex and we're both fine with it, then I don't see a problem. The problem comes when if a woman says no, or if someone says no, rather, and the other person doesn't stop, then yeah, that's rape. It doesn't matter if it's hard, then tough, isn't it? It's still rape if one party doesn't like it. I mean, if they've both consented, then that's fine. But if there's not consent, that's rape. That's as simple as that.
Good, we agree on that at least.
That sex without consent is rape.
Yeah, no, you have to both have to be consenting. Otherwise, if one party does not consent, it's rape. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Rape is bad.
Pretty much. And next I got written here. Going on to the next point. Jess Phillips. I've seen the clip of that. That's a bit I think she must have like thought that the men's rights that you were talking about, MRAs, I think. Again, I'll come back to it. The individual does not dictate the like wider movement, and obviously things like men's suicide rates and like male depression and things, they're obviously important topics to discuss. And I think that there was misunderstanding, but obviously it's important to talk about things that affect that too. And like I've said, feminism makes it easier for these things to be discussed because they negatively like combat male stereotypes, such as like a man can't appear weak, or but discussing emotions makes you weak, and discussing things like depression makes you weak. Like they're things that feminist arguments would deconstruct, because they deconstruct the idea of a man having to be strong and emotionally like resolute and solid and stuff. Like that's where I would say the need for discussing male issues can be addressed through feminism, because they like decrease the need for like barriers to be put up around discussing that. And we come on to rape legitimacy and like false accusations and stuff. Like I've said, obviously, like we don't want to have situations where you can just like say, it's rape, and the man goes to jail, or like just accept it. But the point is that the attitude around rape is so like poor and so like unfair for them, in the way that like they have to go through so many procedures to like prove their rape, and be in many ways humiliated by the authorities that supposedly are there to protect them. And not to mention like family and friends and peers and stuff that like needs to talk around it. Like the idea that the idea that one would comprehend lying about that, like obviously some do, but I think it's hugely unfair to like have an air of cynicism around them just because a few women did lie about it. Like, and maybe your neighbour did, or if you said you've gone to jail, and yeah, they did, and obviously that's not on. But for me to then look at another rape victim or someone saying, I've been raped," and then say, well, you might be lying.
No. I wasn't making the claim that like all rape accusations are like false. I was just making the link between that. A lot of women who make these false rape accusations don't go to jail, and basically ruin some men's lives for just accusing them. That was my point.
Well, yeah, I mean, more serious repercussions like would probably be better there, but I think it's more important like the proportion of false rape accusations to the ones that are true, and the ones that go unreported as well. I mean, loads of like I've heard the argument that if you're raped, then just go to the police, but it's seriously lacking like the understanding of what a rape is and how people come to terms with it, and whether people even want to sort of discuss it as well. Like it's not as simple as just like reporting it, having a rape kit like done and stuff. Like there's more important, like there's more that happens when a rape happens. Like some people that even like they're engineered not to see it as a rape because like it's from a loved one or like a partner or something. Like it's more complicated than just like having the evidence ready to hand in, and then as soon as you've like gone there, it's just like the rape problem is solved. Like that, like there's still big problems with it in society. But anyway, I've gone through all the points, so you can respond.
Yeah, you said MRAs are misguided, but can't you see how someone can claim the same about feminism? Like because in a lot of people's views, because it's a massive minority of women even who are feminists, and feminism actually only advocates for women's rights, but you make it out to be that it's supposed to solve all issues, which is not the original definition, which I said like in the beginning of the stream. And you said like at the MRA convention, they like trash feminists and things like that. Like it might happen. I won't say it doesn't, but mean words and criticism it should be allowed. It's freedom of speech, and When I see like this whole trigger warning thing and safe spaces in colleges, it frustrates me. And you said you basically made the I would say the false equivalence of like the I'm not a racist. I have a black friend basically with MRAs, with female MRAs. But there are prominent female MRAs like Karen Strawn, Alison Tiemann, and people in Honey Badgers and other MRAs who advocate for men's rights. You even have a Tiki Bomber in the chat who would actually say that she's a feminist, but advocates for men's rights, and even says in the chat that she would stand proudly with an MRA. And you also, I don't know, you said on War Corps's stream you didn't like her, but Christina of Summers and the other woman, something like that. There's also other feminists who call out feminists and the so-called SJWs when they lie, and that's kind of the issue. And you said Amazing Atheist gives atheism a bad name, but I could also say that for Anita Sarkeesian and Steve Shives and people like them, because they cry sexism and racism, xenophobia, Islamophobia, and all sorts of stuff. Sorry, and you have the whole toxic masculinity rhetoric, which basically shames masculinity. I know there are people try to make the case that it's like the toxic ideas that men have to be buff and things like that, or brave. But when again, when men actually show their emotions, they get met with things like male tears, or Jess Phillips who laughs, or rape shelters who don't take, or domestic abuse shelters who don't take in men. Also ask you this: what procedures would you remove from the evidence gathering or the process when it comes to rape? Because we have to have the proof. This is how things are, to make sure this is the best procedure so far in humanity, that we know we can prove someone has been raped. You can't come 6 months afterwards and just say you have been raped, because there's no evidence for it. And there was a little bit of anecdotal evidence, but there were 10 years ago, I think 10, 15 years ago here, there was a man who was raped but got laughed at in court and by other and in media, who said he was raped by a woman. And male envelopment isn't part of a lot of Western countries, or I would say a lot of or all countries. I don't know if it's part of my laws, but male rape, rape by a female, is not part of a rape. You have to be penetrated. You can go ahead and reply.
Right. Let's see. So MRAs, you criticise the fact I said MRAs are misguided, but then you said that the definition of feminism is like primarily for women's rights. I would say that whilst feminism is about equality of sexes and that they do address men's issues, it's fair to say that women face more inequalities, hence why the movement is primarily focused on women's rights. Like, obviously, like, feminism isn't saying men's rights aren't important and men's issues aren't worth talking about. It's the fact that there's more inequalities that women face, which need discussing. That's the whole point. Like, obviously, like, no one's saying that like rapes happen to men is an unworthy topic of discussion, but statistics show that more rapes in overwhelming that happen to women. Hence, why it's more of a woman's issue. Like, it's not like just because it has woman in the name or feminine in the name doesn't mean it's not like doesn't mean it's disregarding men. It's just focusing on women. And I think that You said earlier that you're an egalitarian, and obviously egalitarianism is good, but egalitarianism is equality for everyone, and feminism is equality for both genders. The two are basically the same. Like, in my opinion, like I would consider myself a feminist, and I would consider myself an egalitarian. I don't see the two as not as being like unrelated. Like, and some people will say to me, "Oh, well, feminism is actually about advancing women beyond men and stuff," but that's a wrong definition, in my opinion. Like, the two are the same for me. Then going on to freedom of speech, and you said you don't like safe spaces and stuff. They exist because, sadly, as I've already said, harassment is still very much an issue, and not just obviously not like assault and stuff harassment, but like just catcalling and like pervasive behavior and just you okay?
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, no worries. So yeah, like areas where people feel like safer to be. Like, and I get annoyed when people say, "Oh, safe spaces are so bad," like as though it somehow makes you like weak to be in a safe space. But unfortunately, we live in a society, and you said yourself that rape is an inevitable part of society, of a free society. So is it not then natural that we've had safe spaces and like safer college campuses implemented if you're saying that like you can't stop like the degree that rape happens in society? I would say they're there and they're needed because there's still problems with like female students or any student who feels unsafe feeling safe. And as we said earlier, the 1 in 5 stat about college campuses and the problems that many universities have with dealing with rapes and assaults shows the need for student safety within the like safe spaces. And plus, with freedom of speech, obviously people can say what they want, but then we as a society then act on the things they said. We criticize them, and if it's outwardly like hateful, harmful stuff, as in like literally like threatening people's lives and stuff, and threatening like societies, like, or threatening other people's freedoms, I guess, that has to be acted on. So it's all very well like people saying like awful things. I mean, like, oh, freedom of speech. Like, no one said you can't say it, but don't expect people to not take action if once you have said it. Hence why, like, if like a paedophile says, "Oh, it's my freedom of speech to say that I find kids attractive," then you're obviously going to take action because that person's like showing they have paedophilic like thoughts in their head. Just as you would take action and judge if a sexist says something like, feminists are ugly sluts and stuff. Like, what do you expect? People are always going to criticize you if you're saying things like that, or people should criticize you if you've got sexist views. So, false equivalence. You did actually. This is you criticize. You said that people like Karen Strawn and like I can't remember who else he said, but women who do take the side of the men's rights activists. Like my example was essentially to criticize the idea that just having a, like as he said, like just having a woman there makes you not a sexist. Like, and I would argue that in many cases, the women in question are sexist towards women. Like, it is possible for a woman to be sexist towards women, believe it or not. As strange as it sounds, it does happen. I think that whilst there are good points raised by some men's rights activists, the idea of the whole movement is set to fight feminism and thus like combat the idea that women's rights are still in question is poor. Like, if they wanted progress, then people who call themselves men's rights activists would align, not fight feminism. Like, because if you have the awareness to see there's problems for men in society, then you should also be able to do the same for female problems. Like, if anyone were to sit here and say society is perfect for one gender, it would be silly, because if you've had the analysis and like analytical brain to view one problem, you can then surely not see problems for other genders too. Which, yeah, it does annoy me that there are some people who call themselves feminists who say men have it all, women are like not, women like need to do everything. Like, because obviously that's wrong, because as we've said, there are problems that men face in society, but you need to like realize that people need to realize that women have it worse. Like, and yeah, obviously in some cases it's not going to be the case, but as I've outlined, there are still economic, social, political, cultural problems that exist in society. that's why feminism exists, and that's why it calls itself feminism. The fem is for female or feminine or whatever. You did make a good point on the amazing atheist, and like how if I'm saying he's a bad representation of atheists, you can then point to people who I would align with as a feminist, and then say they're bad representation. And I think that society as a whole needs to stop viewing the individual as the an individual as representative of their whole idea. But again, you can do this to politics as well. Like people made the political election, the presidential election between Clinton and Trump to be Clinton is corrupt, Trump is better than Clinton, therefore vote Trump, and missing the whole other concept of the idea. Focus on the individual agency is always it's been a problem for me in society for a while. I think it's not something that should be done. Though having said that, Sarkeesian and Shive's points, they still hold resonance. Whilst some of their methods may be devious, I'm not too sure on Steve Shives. As for, I think Steve Shives is. I've not seen his faults. I'm aware of Anita Sarkeesian's problems with poor research and stuff in places, but her overall point about raising awareness about video games and sexism in video games, I still think holds up for the most part. As for Steve Shives, same thing. His research seems decent, and his points are still valid. The amazing atheist may raise some good points sometimes, and again, I'm an atheist myself, so we're going to agree on a few things. But his views on feminism are so contorted and misleading that he holds no weight with me. I know, of course, someone could say to me, "Oh, well, you're a feminist, so of course you would disagree with him." But the method, he's missing the point so much. I feel with you, you're actually addressing what I'm saying, whereas he doesn't. Basically, he'll react to a BuzzFeed video and claim that's a legitimate debunking of feminism or whatever. But anyway, toxic masculinity. It's an interesting one. I think the concept is, from my understanding, that when the idea of masculinity being all about strength and traditionally male things like dominance and pervasiveness, and then that's the only existence of a man, and that a man has to exert himself over a woman, and the idea that if you enforce that in society, then it's toxic. That at heart isn't a bad thing. Obviously, no one's saying that a man who is those characters, who is strong and dominant, is a bad thing. No one said that. It's the idea that masculinity and femininity are so strictly defined as one being above the other, and one being a key topic and the other being nothing at all. That's my problem. There's where toxic masculinity is a legitimate thing. Again, you raised a good point where you're saying that when a male problem is raised, it's met with laughter and derision, and you said as such that with Jess Phillips, that was a poor response, I thought, from her. But again, if we look at the actual movements, feminism, when done right, or the majority of feminists won't just disregard male issues like that. I think Jess Phillips perhaps misunderstood the question, which obviously isn't acceptable because she should have had more awareness and stuff. But that it's not her disregarding those things; it's just her being naive in that instance. So, and then we'll come on to rape procedures. I'm not saying that you need to lower what a rape is. I'm not saying we'll just make it easier to prove stuff and changing the way we collect evidence. I'm saying that we need to stop societally questioning women I'm trying to express myself. Questioning their character and stuff, making it out to us, asking whether they're a liar or not, or trying to prove that they're a liar rather than just believing them. And obviously, we need to be careful, not instantly casting a victim out to a side and us casting the male as a rapist and ruining their career and stuff if they're innocent. But the fact that most women do not lie about a rape, should give us an instigation that women will not lie. Women won't lie about rape as much as women won't lie about it as much as they will lie about it. And again, I'll bring you back to the sort of negative environment that rape victims are sort of placed in when a rape happens. You have to consider that obviously procedures will be harder if it's been a longer period of time between the rape and the reporting of the rape. But again, the psychological effect of being raped isn't something that we should take lightly. I hear people saying that if you're raped, then just go and prove it by doing a rape kit. which that's not how it works. Like, it's not important. It's like I'm saying, it's important to consider that something like rape isn't going to be reported straight away because, again, it's quite understandable people are afraid of reporting it, given the amount of time it takes to go through a court case, negative stereotypes, and like especially in like schools and stuff. I mean, I've discussed on War Corpses debate that negative connotations around girls who sleep, like, want to have sex and stuff and sleep around, and like the idea that having lots of sex is bad if you're a girl, but then makes you like a better man, or if you're a boy. But again, that's what I would say to that. Like, it's not as simple. I'm not saying like change rape procedures. I'm saying treat rape victims more seriously and with more respect than what we see at the moment in society, where they're essentially given like a judge of character rather than just like treated like a crime. Anyway, you go ahead. I've just seen on the chat as well that you're taking the last point. So
Yeah, no, you can rebut to this, but it's kind of these are kind of my big talking points. So you can kind of take some time. I'm gonna look at the chats if they have any input. But so this is kind of a big, a long time I'm gonna talk. So that's why.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Let's see. Just addressing the last point with slut shaming. See, the issue is that feminists, even in video games, say that sexy women are like very bad, and you have to have a equal representation. And having gorgeous women in video games in general are a bad thing, according to these, not just Anita Sarkeesian, but also other journalists or critics. And also with the slut shaming, I mean, I know it's anecdotal evidence, but I talked to an 18-year-old who had slapped, basically the challenge, like, for every guy or a partner you had slept with, how would you be a little breezy, drunk, or dead? And she said dead, basically having over 20 partners, but nobody slut shamed her, basically. This was a real conversation, not just internet, just to make it clear. Also, when it comes to abusive tweets, male politicians receive 6 times more abusive tweets than male politicians in Britain. I'm gonna try to leave all the links so you can look at everything I've been talking about. If there's anything I leave out, please, Owen, let me know so I can actually put it in either the description or in a comment. You say feminists saying that male issues aren't important, but can't you see how men's rights activists say the same thing? So again, I find it a little bit hypocritical, or you can say the exact same thing about the other side. I would also need a citation on the male rape statistic, that male rape is the vast minority, when in US most men are actually raped more when you include the rape statistic from prison. So men are actually the majority of rape victims. Harassment does happen in college, but most crime is actually perpetrated against men, or twice as likely to happen to men compared to women in college. So there's no need for safe spaces. I would say a safe space is a weak argument that where you can't handle dissent or other opinions, because we've seen this time and time again. I don't particularly like him, but Milo or Ben Shapiro being protested and shut down because people need their safe space. You had people needing counseling and like coloring books after Milo had been at DePaul University. So I think that's kind of a BS argument. That's you need safe spaces, and safe colleges are some of the safest places you can be, even in the US or in the UK. It's not the same thing in here in Scandinavia, because you basically have apartments outside of the campus. But that's a whole other issue. And you said women have it worse. To quote you, um, just to give you some counters to that, mental issues with men is not being taken seriously. Suicide is the biggest killer of men in the UK. 12 male lives every day in UK, 89 in US. Feminist laws which have been implemented, the manspreading in New York, and misgendering someone could cost a business up to 150,000. So if you want to use they or them or zer or whatever, you can, or being gender fluid, for example, could get you sued. And is that showing equality? Bill C-16 in Canada, which just passed, which is basically the same thing, which Jordan Peterson has been speaking out about. Transgender wants to be called she or him, but having extra pronouns is ridiculous, which intersectional feminism has been advocating for. You also have had the new, I don't know if it actually went through, but there was a law that was tried to be passed in New Jersey in US, where you could get sued and put in had a court case if you lied to a woman to get her to sleep with you. On full disclosure, I don't know if it actually passed, but it was advocated for by feminist groups to push that through. Men get screwed over in divorce, have to pay the woman, lose the custody of the children in most cases, and don't get their voices heard in courts. And as you said women have it worse. Yet Jess Phillips is naive. I think that's a little bit naive from you. That's not an unharmon. I am trying to be honest here. She laughed at the person who it was another MP when he asked for one day to talk about men's issues, and she even claims she's for equality. I think that's a little bit hypocritical for her when she's an MP, a woman in politics in Britain. 78% of murder victims are men in the US. So how is it worse for women in the West? Male genital mutilation is not illegal, while female genital mutilation is, at least in most Western countries. Cancer research is severely lacking. 1 in 6 will get prostate cancer. I know I had someone in my family die of it, and 1 in 8 will receive breast cancer. But breast cancer receives double of any other cancer research, and there's no awareness in November for prostate cancer, while there's a lot of campaigning going for breast cancer, and even men get breast cancer but get denied like the screenings. Men die 20 more are 20 more times likely to die and die more than the rate of women. And the people who die, 92% are men, which was in 2014, 5,000 died, 92% were men. And if you want to look at male privilege, here, or when I had to spend a whole year of my life in the army with draft, while women did not. So, and when it has been advocated also in other countries, for a draft for women, feminists have gone against it and tried to stop it. And where's the equality there? And you all can also see this male privilege when most of the men coming home from war are being treated in a very bad way, at least in the US. I also know someone personally who had a lot of issues coming home from war. He was in total 9 years in tour, and that was a man, and had big mental issues which he didn't get help for. And this is kind of a genuine question, because we've talked a lot about men hating on women, but would you say that women can be misandric, or would you kind of say they can't because privilege and all sorts? I'm not trying to strawman you. I'm genuinely curious your position here. And the men's rights activists are kind of trying to advocate for men. They're not really against feminism, which I've seen. I know, again, anecdotal evidence, but from what I have seen, when a Red Pill movie has been censored, have been advocating for censorship on various occasions. I have not seen this from people in Gamergate or from the MRAs. And issues that men's rights activists try to help with, they get shut down in, as I mentioned earlier. So those are kind of my big points. You can rebut to that. I'm gonna look at the chat and see if they want some questions in, or some arguments, which you then can respond to. Go ahead.
Sure. Sorry, it's on a page. You've said quite a bit. Let's start.
Yeah, that was kind of that's why I decided beforehand.
No worries. So, slut shaming from feminism. This is quite an interesting one. I think that with Sarkeesian's arguments that, or from journalist arguments that sexy woman is equivalent to being like essentially saying that it's bad, I have a different approach to their own arguments. I think that we need to move to a stage where a woman's body isn't something that's bad, and it should be expressed however it wants to be expressed by the woman in question. So whether that's showing a lot of cleavage or not, whether that's however it is, it doesn't matter. It should just be allowed to be expressed. The problem with me comes that when the only women you see in games or in a game are all these women dressed to us in a certain way that shows traditionally attractive or conventionally attractive features. So I don't know, big breasts, a nice ass, essentially whatever some which is I guess a man has designed it to be, just to appeal to the sense of attractiveness to their assumed heterosexual male gamer. And I think we need to move to a stage where if in an ideal society we have all sorts of women in games, and anyone and the idea of a woman dressed that way isn't controversial because it's not seen as a bad thing. But we have to also accept that some women don't, or you don't need to be dressed like that in a game all the time. The only woman we see in games a lot of the time will be like that, and that's silly in some ways. I don't think that I think arguments to say, oh well, sexy women should be toned down. I don't agree with that, because that essentially implies that that form of expressing yourself is bad, which obviously it's not. I think it's just you need more diversity, more freedom, I guess, around it in choice and stuff, and perhaps less shady game executives who just want to appeal to the sense of attractiveness that women have. Essentially the idea that a woman is only attractive through these of exposed skin and breast and curvature and stuff. We need to move and evolve past that as well. So then we come on to the abusive tweets.
Just before we continue, I would also make the opposite point of males being shredded, looking or buff as hell, but nobody points that out when it comes to games. Glad you agree that it's silly. I still think that it's creative freedom. People should do whatever they want. But it also goes for the kind of the double standard when it also comes to men. Nobody seems to care then. But continue.
Well, I think it's less like, obviously there are games which have like muscular men, but I suppose it's less like overt. You have different male protagonists are like everywhere, whereas female like characters or male characters are everywhere. So like female characters like are less common. Therefore, the fact that there's overwhelmingly so many female characters with like sexualization taking precedent in their design compared to male characters. And then I suppose I would also raise the point that often male characters are written better a lot of the time, because often like the people who write the characters don't do a very good job with women a lot of the time. Like they'll say things like, or they'll essentially just be written like half-assedly, or be like, girl power, but then they'll just be there, or they'll essentially represent what the male gaze wants to see in them, which sounds complicated. Like, I think you need to consider that with male characters and their sexualization, they're often not seen, like it's not as prevalent. Like it's seen again through the male view of what they want to see, like a muscular buff guy. Like it's it doesn't consider other forms of attraction in men, which is like easier to distinguish than with women. Like I feel the standard so well, obviously like there are like, a lot of men who get like overtly like muscular and buff and stuff in games, but it's less prevalent than with women. Like that's just a case of looking at that's just a case of looking at the media, like and games and stuff and film. Then moving on, abusive tweets. You quoted a stat. Male politicians get 6 times more abuse than female politicians. Again, whilst abuse of that nature, obviously, like that's gonna happen a lot of the time. Misogynistic abuse and just abuse are like two different things. It depends what you count as abuse, really. Like people calling like David Cameron a twat or something, or like a dickhead, that's going to be counted as the same as calling a female politician like a bitch or a cunt or something or whatever. Like, but then there's more abuse that's aimed to a female politician for their like I don't know, their looks or their gender or whatever. Like there's more abuse that's aimed based on around gender that happens to female politicians. Whereas with obviously, I'm not saying that men don't get abused for being like masculine traits. Obviously, that's going to happen, but a lot of criticism. Like, for instance, like I've seen a lot people calling Nicola Sturgeon, who's the First Minister of Scotland, a dog and stuff, and saying that saying she's like ugly and that stuff and things like that. Like that stuff that's primarily centered about criticism of her gender and essentially looking at a politician, a senior figure of like political importance, for their gender and only judging them based on like their opinions of appearance and stuff, which obviously that represents sexism. Like, and obviously like male politicians, there's more male politicians to be abused for one, but for two, like the criticism that's been aimed like is different because it's not aimed at their sexual like nature. It's not because of their man, it's because of something else. Whereas a lot of female politicians, it's because they're women that the criticism's been aimed. Like they don't agree with them, so it's just they're a woman, they're bad and stuff, which becomes a criticism. The point on feminists' arguments and male right arguments, or the fact feminists could say that essentially they're saying the similar things just for their own gender and stuff. Again, the reason feminism I feel is the movement that's the like prioritized one is because, as I said, there's more obvious issues that face more prevalent issues in society that face women than men, and then having two separate movements, one called men's rights movement activists and stuff like that actively that says whenever a feminist issue is raised, that's there, but this is here too, and saying, what about us? That all that does is cause conflict, and the fact that they so consistently like try to debunk and deface feminism whenever they can shows that a lot of the time they aren't interested in advancing their own rights, but like devaluing the arguments feminism perpetuates. And whilst I do agree there are some really good points that are made by people who call themselves men's rights activists, and I don't think it's at all to say that we shouldn't discuss the things they're saying. It's just that it's silly to call it that when feminism makes a point of it too. The only reason feminism is called feminism is because more issues they're talking about happen to women than men. That's all it is. Then I've got male prison. Here we go. Male prison rapes. I don't doubt there's a lot of rape that happens in prisons, but the difference between male prison rapes and rape as a whole is that one takes place in society where women and men are roughly the same numbers, and one is in an all-male environment. So it's natural there's going to be male rapes happening there because men. If it's all men, then of course the rape is going to be between men. I'm not saying that to devalue the issue at all, because obviously it's a serious issue and it needs to be properly discussed. Because again, male rape is a topic which doesn't get a lot of coverage. I forgot to mention a few minutes ago, actually, that your example of that man who got laughed at because he went to court to protest a rape that happened to him, that's obviously not on. Like, it's disgusting to see that the press would like openly mock someone like that. And that like leads into the idea that men can't discuss things like this, and that's what feminism aims to fight: the negative stereotypes around men who don't want to take the dominant assertive role, or don't want to be seen as like a proper, or men who discuss rape and stuff, or men who get raped, then they're not like, their masculinity isn't like negated, or they're not like made any less a man. But that's what feminism wants to fight. Onto men, like male college, like murder rates and male college abuse. Actually, no, murder rates can come later. Male college rates and abuse and stuff, and violent acts towards men on college. Again, there's a difference between violence and sexual violence, and like things that are instigated through sexism and stuff. A robbery or like a stealing between two men or whatever, that's not gendered. That's not like no one's thinking, oh, they're a man, I'm going to go after them. Like, that's so whilst more fights and stuff and more like assaults happen to men, the ones that happen to women a lot of the time are through their gender, like through someone looking to target someone because they're a woman, because they find them attractive or whatever, and assault or rape them or harass them. The fact that, again, harassment is not seen as an issue by a lot of people, therefore when they make a comment or when they say something or when they do something, it's not seen as them doing anything wrong. It's just, oh, well, it's just me acting like how I act. That's why there needs to be more discussion around it, which leads us on to safe spaces, which, yeah, you can say, oh, it's just it's a sign of weak society or whatever, or the fact that like people want psychology for Milo Yiannopoulos showing up at your college and stuff. Well, I can't blame him for that, because Milo Yiannopoulos' whole argument and the whole people he surrounds himself with are so like, well, they tout themselves as anti-feminist, they act as though like there's no problems at all and that their issues shouldn't be discussed. Like, and yeah, I would feel like if I were someone in that situation, then I could pretty well understand that. I can understand why people get afraid and want like areas where they can't like go. And to have him not speak, I think, I'm not sure on that. I mean, there's two sides to it. On the one hand, you want to like freedom of speech. On the other hand, like, what's it going to do to the students who are essentially, they're letting this like piece of work come in and essentially saying, oh, your problems aren't real. Rape's not an issue anymore that needs discussing because we can do it. We've done as much as we can. Like, men are a real people who are oppressed. Like, it's not the right way of thinking about it for me. So safe spaces are really important, I think, because whilst, yeah, it's important to discuss ideas and it's important to let people debate and discuss, on the other hand, there's people who have had negative experiences and don't want to have negative experience happen to them, and who genuinely are, like, there's good concern to be afraid and stuff. So it's silly to just say, oh, well, it's against freedom of speech and it's a sign of weak society to disregard them. And then we're coming on to some stats now and stuff. I've never said mental health issues for men is a problem. Is a problem? Mental health issues for men is not a problem, sorry. Absolutely not. And like things like...
this was more of you saying women have it worse. That's the context.
Right. Well, I discussed earlier economic, political, and social problems with society and the way it's structured and stuff, which leads me to say that, like, my own personal interpretation of feminism is that I collaborate it with Marxism in a way, in that society is set up to disadvantage women as such, and people of lower economic standards. We can talk about that another time maybe, but certainly I think that whilst I've never said that, I would never say that depression or anything like that is to that is not an important issue, and that men who go through that aren't facing extreme circumstances. But we have to consider that there are factors which lead women to be at a disadvantage to men through politics, through economy, through social and cultural aspects of society, and just through life itself. It's harder in many aspects to be a woman, and I'm not saying that depression and suicide rates and stuff, they obviously are serious issues, but they still there's not grounds to say that there's not oppression and stuff, and there's there's inequality and stuff. I turn the page now. Misgendering and stuff. I think pronouns, I don't see why it affects anyone to have more pronouns than just he and she. I don't see how using terms like they, their, them and stuff, I don't see how that negatively hurts anyone. What does it matter whether someone wants to be called they instead of he or she? What does it matter that a person doesn't necessarily identify as male or female, but as both or neither, or a aspect of them? It's not important to another person. It's not like if I say, what's your name? Or it's not if I say, are you he or she? And I'm there I'm actually they. It's not my he-ness gets eroded and stuff. It doesn't hurt anyone. It's just letting people express the way they feel about themselves. I don't see. We get all these videos where it's how many genders? Two. How many genders? Two. It's such a babyish way of doing things, in my opinion. The worst ones that what's her name? Shoe on Head, where she's got her little she's got the two fingers up, saying the video's called "How Many Genders?" Is a giant number 2, in the thumbnail. It's so pointless seeing this. How does it affect? And my whole question with that is, how does it affect you that someone else wants to be referred to as they or neither or whatever they want? It doesn't hurt anyone, so just move on with the times and let people express themselves how they want to be. We come to male divorce cases and court cases. Again, I've never said that it's I've never said that it's a fair system, and there are certainly problems. I mean, I know someone who's currently going through some serious sort of problems with that. But at the same time, there are still issues. There are other issues which sort of hold more weight, I would say. And I'm not saying that it's not a bad issue, but there are issues that affect more people, economic, political, and social disadvantages and stuff that affect more people, which lead me to say that it's more there's more disparities for women than men. And obviously male divorce cases and court cases, they're not fair, but there's more women being affected by the other factors than men being affected by this. Hence leading me to say that. Coming back to Jess Phillips, again, I'm not saying she acted in the right way. I guess I'm just saying that she maybe she must have either misinterpreted the what the politician said to her, or just reacted poorly or whatever. But again, she's one individual, and I've had plenty of male quotes from men who have said questionable things or reacted in a certain way to female things. You only have to look at. I said as much to Walcott's. The newspapers like the Daily Mail and the Sun discuss female politicians as though they're nothing more than objects and stuff a lot of the time. They'll focus on when there was a cabinet reshuffle a few years ago, David Cameron's new cabinet, and the female politicians in that cabinet get judged on their dresses and dress size and how old they are and how well they've aged and stuff, and just generally disregard any sort of political context to what they're saying, and would instead rather discuss how they look, which is just silly, because not only does it betray what the press is meant to be, which is not only does it betray what the press is meant to be, which is to convey ideas to the public, but it treats your females in politics like objects. Then murder rates for men. Again, I sort of said the same earlier, but murder is often not gendered, whereas like, I mean, whilst it may affect more men, it's not because their men have been murdered. I know maybe in a few cases it has been. I'm not saying female murderers aren't a thing, but like there's not as many like gendered murders as there are like as so much like rapes and assaults and stuff. That's not how it is. Male genital if there's a discrepancy between male and female genital mutilation, then yeah, maybe. Are you talking about? I mean, I'm not actually aware of male genital mutilation. Obviously, it is a thing, but I'm not sure what it constitutes of. So I perhaps wouldn't be most qualified to talk about that one. So I'll have to look that one up myself afterwards. Cancer research, again, perhaps it stems from negative connotations around talking about one's like, I guess, like penis and genitals and stuff for a man, which again, feminism wants to like allow men more sort of status to talk about issues like this, like health and stuff, because again, it links into the fact that men can't be deemed to have any sort of weakness. So, you know, talking about illness would at one point have been seen as like a negative thing. So yeah, if there is, I mean, the health committees are sort of underfunded worldwide. I mean, even in our country with the NHS, like our current government is doing like not enough to help it whatsoever. So it's harder to sort of address that whilst governments are not doing enough. But yeah, it's an issue that needs to be sorted. Then, well, what have we got? Male. You talk about conscription. Sorry. Male conscription. I don't think conscription's a good thing. And obviously, I think that if women want to serve in the armed forces, they should be. But I don't think anyone should be forced to. So I don't know what your view of the army is, but I wouldn't have. I certainly don't think conscription should be allowed. But as regards to PTSD, like I think that the way society treats mental health issues needs a lot of work as a whole. And yeah, feminism does do stuff to combat that because it wants people. It essentially allows them to talk about their emotions more. So it would allow soldiers returning from like conflict or serving time in the army to have better access to health care and like psychologists and stuff. And then on the page of the last time, you asked me whether I think women can be misandrous. Yeah, of course they can. Like, of course, a woman can be sexist. Of course, like people can be like. Of course, like if I say anything, a black person can be racist. A woman can be sexist. I'm going to give examples here.
No, it was just a genuine question. It wasn't like strawmanning you. I was just genuinely curious about that.
Yeah. But yeah, no, that's the last thing I have written here, I think. And actually, no, I have MRA, but I can't remember what it was for. But it's probably something else. Anyway, yeah, that's a long slog of things done.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the chat now. I'm seeing this from Porcelain Chips. Proving sexism is a huge lawsuit subgenre that is very lucrative. Gloria Allred's entire career is based on championing these types of cases. What do you think about that?
So when you say proving, you mean like in jobs and stuff, or like?
Yeah, workplaces and just in general, I think.
It's a tough one. I mean, I think it's hard to prove individually. It's the fact that so like as a whole, like as I said, like the curvature of a corporation or an organization shows that the higher you go, the fewer men you have. And the fact that you mentioned earlier that 56% of women took up places at universities now in America, like the fact that there's more women coming through with qualifications, yet the nature of the hierarchy of organizations has not drastically improved in terms of gender equality, and it's still not 50-50 at all, like across decades of progress in that field, shows that there are still systematic problems with the way that society combats this. And yeah, like obviously it's hard to like say, this employer is sexist, therefore I should earn this promotion. I mean, it's easier when you look at like wages and what your co-workers are earning compared to you and like that sort of stuff. But in regards to social elevation, the fact that it doesn't matter that individual cases are hard to prove. The fact that there's still like not enough representation in politics, in corporations and stuff. That shows you problems there are in in showing sexism that is like essentially institutional. Like, because whether a boss may not be sexist individually, but their bosses and the people above them will employ an unequal ratio of women to men. And yeah, obviously you can say, oh, well, often the people have earned their way into a position, but it like any structure of any corporation is not like, it's not like every single position is earned purely because of that. Like, over time, female candidates and candidates of ethnicity, candidates of like sexuality and stuff, they get like whittled down the higher up you go. Like, hence why, like I said, the highest like CEOs and the richest, they're most likely like white, male, probably straight. I mean, I guess like you've asked, sexuality is less of a thing there, but white and male certainly. Like, there's a reason the richest are normally them.
I also have another. I have another from Tiki Bomber, kind of several. I don't know if you kind of addressed it, but feminism links quote unquote to such things because which was linked to like the bad things in the movement, which he's referring to. Feminism is trying to be the solve all solutions when it comes to issues like this. Domestic abuse is 50-50 thing. There's more women on women domestic abuse than men on men domestic abuse. Feminism is needed to combat domestic abuse. Police are needed to combat domestic abuse. This is all coming from feminists. What's your response?
So in regards to the solve all solutions, I guess like you can apply it to a lot of different things, I guess, like, because obviously like sexism manifests itself in lots of areas of society and goes both ways and stuff, obviously. Like, so as a whole, like, you just adapt the way you speak about and around like issues like abuse and domestic abuse and stuff, and more openness, more discussion around what it constitutes, more like sympathy instead of disregarding of like issues and stuff. As for the more women on women and men on men, again, I'm not sure of the stats, but certainly a lot of the times men subjugating women to domestic abuse is swept under the carpet or just considered part of marriage or like not discussed enough, which leads to women not wanting to discuss the actions their partners have committed. And likewise, lots of men don't want to discuss the problems they've had because like it's hard. As we said, the court cases aren't always great. And there's problems in like the negative connotations around being like beaten up by a woman or something, as feminism has tried to like combat and stuff. As for police being needed to combat domestic abuse, obviously you want to involve the law enforcement stuff, and obviously you sort of need to go through like the law to deal with it, but you need like feminism to change like the way things work with the police, like or society as a whole rather. You need people in the police like thinking from a more equal mindset, because whilst obviously I'm not saying like all policemen are crap and stuff, but you have like officers who will just say, oh, we'll sort out in the family, or like say, oh, well, if you can't provide actual evidence, then we'll just have to end the case here. And obviously I'm not saying like you just like call someone an abuser without evidence, but don't like send someone away or like say we can't deal with you because you've not got any proof when they're saying to you that there's a problem. Like, you have to take them seriously. So yeah, obviously the police are the people you want dealing with these things, but you need feminism to change the sort of culture and like mindset people have when they're dealing with it. So the institutions need to change in some ways. I'm not saying like like change the police, but obviously it's going to take time. You need time to change the ideologies. Anyway, next question, if there are any.
Yeah. By the way, if there are things I'm not taking, I hope you would come back and perhaps some of the people in the chat would actually like to ask some questions or make some arguments in person. We could kind of discuss that after this. But anyways, Men are never This is from Tiki Bomber again. Men are never feminists. They cannot actually identify as a feminist. I'd rather be honest about this instead of you finding out later when your female feminists turn on you around and stab you. Feminists are cannibals. We will destroy our own kinds. Yes, feminist is an ideology. It's a bad one, but it's an ideology. I don't think feminists should be involved in the gay community. I don't support the first world issues feminists. I support a men's rights movement and will be glad to stand next to MRAs to fight for the rights that men are wanting. But I won't do that because feminism needs to be involved. Feminism needs to work to stop making so many victims and start making survivors. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, men are never feminists is a statement that's just wrong, really, because a white person can be like anti-racist. A straight person can be pro LGBT rights. Like it doesn't. You don't have to be a woman to be a feminist. Like it's not a only a woman can possess their own rights thing. Like and as we've already discussed in this chat, there are men's issues which feminists like to protest and raise awareness for. So to say that, I think is quite disingenuous, really. I don't think I've already like described why I support feminism, so I'm not going to address why I think calling it bad is wrong. First world feminists. Whilst I agree that there's some context that's needed with feminism sometimes. There are women who are facing it a lot worse than what's currently been experienced in the West, and there's what's it called? Intersectionality, for instance. So being black and being a woman will have more like problems than just being a woman, for instance. So yeah, obviously like there needs to be some context to just first world feminism, but that doesn't mean there's not problems, and there's no reason to say that you can't address change both here and in, say, the Middle East or in parts of Africa or whatever. Men's rights movement. I mean, I support like issues that affect men, but I won't say I'm part of the men's rights movement because I think it defeats the point of what feminism is trying to say. Like, and I also like the fact that, in my opinion, there's more issues facing women than men. And whilst there are some serious issues facing men, there are some societal problems that face women as well. Like, and the ones that face women are more prevalent and more common. Hence why I would say feminism is the appropriate title and not men's rights activism. And what else? Feminism needs to stop making so many victims and start making survivors. I don't really know like what was being said there.
I think I think what she's meaning to is the whole victimhood complex, which seems to be like donate to my Patreon, help me, I'm such a victim, give me money and stuff like that.
Well, I don't know if that's a widespread thing. I mean, I could point to the Sargon of Akkad again, using him. I could point to his petition to suspend social justice campaigns, for example, of that. But yeah, I mean, I think it's silly to just sort of constantly sort of say, "Oh, woe is me." It's important to sort of instigate the change we want, but at the same time, it's important to recognise that there are like people going through some tough stuff in society, who are victims of sexism in many different forms. And that's not to say that men don't face it too, because of course, but it doesn't delegitimize the issues that a woman's raised before. So I'll say.
I have from Porcelain Chips, from the rape education thing, but rape education doesn't actually teach anything that productively addresses the issue. If anything, those classes teach people to be sexist. My male friends have been told to teach me differently, behave different around me, to not teach me as I think treat me. I think it's it's autocorrect. Anyway, treat me as an equal. The classes teach men to treat the sexes differently instead of the same, and instills that you have to change your behavior based on the sex the person you're speaking to. Anita shames women for acting independently. She denounces choice feminism. She denounces choice feminism has stated clearly on stage that women should not make their own choices if they conflict with how she perceives feminism. But how can we discuss the issues if people purposely derail the conversation? Go ahead.
Right. So again, I've advocated for reform to rape and sexual education in this debate. Actually, I think that it's important that you I don't know, like define that rape can happen to both sexes, that like what consent is and things like that. But good rape education leads people to not rape. It's essentially the awareness around it, what constitutes it, like sexual health. That's what I mean. Like if classes have essentially said that oh don't if people say things like, oh, don't rape women, don't be mean to women because you're a man and you should be treating women with respect. Like if you're solely doing it that, no, it doesn't sound patronizing and like simplistic, but it also doesn't lead people to actually understand why rape is bad or why assault is bad or whatever. It just says it's wrong. It's not. It's that it's wrong, other than why it's wrong. Moving on to Anita Sarkeesian. I think there are elements of things elements in her speech that says, "Oh, this is wrong because I think it is," and therefore, if you disagree with her, you're by nature sexist. Again, it's important to distinguish that her points are right, even if she can be wrong sometimes. She does have some problems, but I think it's important to move beyond a few of the things she says. Like the points she raises are still correct, even if she is wrong. Like the problem we've seen with too many critics of her is that they narrow in on tiny little things that are wrong with her videos rather than focus on a reasons debate. I know that she can be, or she doesn't respond to these people, which, I mean, you can't really blame her to a degree because some of the people who want debates with her, in quotation marks, are looking for nothing more than a shouting match for little errors to debunk her with, to like prove her own points, or just to out and out harass her and make her feel miserable. But no, certainly, like she has her flaws, and I think it's important that we don't like just make sure women are always dressed and stuff and make like her own version of what women should be in video games the sole one, but that we still have a debate around the things she's talking about because she does raise some points, I feel.
But to be fair, if I think it's a little bit of a straw man to say that people are just going to do shout or use ad hominems against Anita Sarkeesian if all she has is her comments like using block bots and is not even able to debate her properly. And the videos are often of her are valid criticisms, and she never addresses it.
Well, I think that I'm not certainly wouldn't say that everyone who criticizes her is a straw is just going to harass her and stuff. There are people who want a genuine debate with why she deems their video games to be sexist or why she thinks are these things in video games. And whilst I think there does need to be more communication, like in not just in like feminism, to be honest, in politics, in just society as a whole, it needs to be more talking and more communication as to why things are happening. And that would lead to so many problems being averted. But as to why she doesn't like combat in discussion, I think because a lot of the time, she wouldn't want to like engage with people who would maybe not themselves harass, but lead to more individuals picking up on that and like festering a movement. I mean, to be honest, I can't speak for her because I'm not Anita Sarkeesian. What I can say is that we can still discuss the issues ourselves without necessarily like resorting to just strawmans and poor discussion and harassment campaigns from either side, or whatever, and stuff. Like they're still like we can still recognize that her point can be legitimate, whilst acknowledging that she herself has made poor arguments before, poor choices.
Yeah, all right. My dogs have to go, so I'm gonna be quick with try to be a little bit concise with the last one, and hopefully cut the stream. I don't want it to go for too long because the dogs are barking. Here, how can men raise their issues if feminists constantly promulgate this notion of male privilege? Feminists often tell me that I am dumb but to bring up men's issues because men are privileged and have all the rights already, greedy much, etc. So it makes perfect sense that a men's movement would oppose feminism. Duh, dude, men can already express their emotions. And he says, you idiot. But, yeah, the only group preventing that are male tears, male privilege, narrating, pushing feminists.
So male privilege, whilst obviously when it's like when you have things like male depression, male like suicide rates, when you have things like that in front of you, yeah, it's easy to see that privilege isn't the case for a lot of men. And certainly, like the way we structure society, there's a lot of men who don't have an economic standing, who don't have the like eye of like they don't have the like social elevation we're talking about. And because for me, I conflate Marxism and feminism to sort of. I can totally get that a lot of men would think, oh, well, why is feminism saying these things when male like men like me don't have this sort of elevation, and thus get annoyed with feminism when it says about male privilege. Though I would say that it is important to recognise that there are things that men can take for granted in society which women don't have, like being able to just air opinions about negative associations within like album. Being a man can be seen as assertive, whereas a woman gets seen as like bossy or like bitchy or whatever. Double standards, stereotypes. I've already spoken about the elevation sort of thing with, like, I guess, like obviously not all the case, but the general makeup of hierarchical organizations. That's where male privilege comes into it. And certainly, it isn't to say that what the guy is saying, like male rights and stuff and men's issues, like that's certainly, we shouldn't be just like discouraging that. And he says that feminists tell me I am dumb to bring up men's issues, but I would question whether they are feminists saying that. Maybe they call themselves feminists, but that doesn't necessarily make them good representations of what feminism is. And you also have to consider that when if a feminist, or if an issue that like sexual assault or rape or something has been discussed as a negative for women, and then someone just comes in, yeah, but this affects men, like that helps no one. That doesn't promote debate. That just says, oh, your issue's not valid because mine is, and mine should be discussed first. Like, there's no reason all the issues can't be discussed, but just saying feminism needs to, like, or your argument needs to be halted whilst I discuss mine, that doesn't create debate. That just negates it. So yeah, maybe it's like maybe people would be annoyed if you just interject consistently, like. And I don't think anyone has said men have all the rights, but certainly, like, it's easier for men in a lot of ways than women, regardless of like the laws and stuff that have been passed. Men can express their emotions. Sorry, I know I'm tracking on, but I'll be quick. When I say men can express their emotions, I mean like talking about like depression, and like I guess suicide and stuff. Anything, just like describing how they're feeling, and you look at things like how the word pussy, for instance, like where it's deemed negative to show any sort of weakness, I guess, or any sort of word that implies weakness through that level, I guess. And male tears, I think, it's a tricky one. I guess it refers to where men complain about seemingly trivial things. So obviously, I would never say depression or anything is trivial, but where let me try and think. Where I come back, someone who would say like, I can't think of an example off the top of my head. But something that's trivial in compared to more serious issues, I guess. Anyway, your dogs are waiting, so you can wrap this up, I guess.
Yeah, sorry, my dog is just barking outside the door. But yeah, I could put some of the comments which we haven't addressed. I think we've gone on long enough, and my dog really has to go outside. Yeah, if you have any comments, put them in any arguments, put them in the comments. And I have to thank Owen to actually come on, because I've tried to get feminists on the other side of the discussion on before, but they've mostly declined. So yeah, I wanna thank you also for keeping. God damn
No
it,
problem.
for keeping this civil. So yeah, I'm gonna stop the stream, and yeah, thank you to Owen, and thanks for everyone for watching, and yeah.